Welcome back, everybody, to the Crypto Bits podcast by Bracewell. We have a very special podcast today. We're doing a crossover event with Vince Morgan, who is the host of the Bracewell Covered podcast, to talk about some intersections between crypto issues and insurance. My name is Dave Shargel. I'm a partner at Bracewell's litigation group and co-head of our crypto practice. And I'm here with Vince Morgan, as I said. Vince, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thanks, Dave, and welcome to this wonderful crossover episode of Covered. So I am also a litigation partner here at Bracewell. I lead our insurance recovery practice. And what's really nice about our practice here is we only focus exclusively on representing corporate policyholders. And so that means we can help our clients with whatever their insurance and risk management needs are from a legal standpoint, including the crypto space, which is becoming, sort of a lot of our clients are now getting involved in that. And so it's really nice to be able to come in here and talk about these issues today.
So Vince, you would have to be living in a cave to not have seen the past, say, 6 months of crypto news, where there have been a lot of losses, a lot of investors who claim to be, have lost significant amounts of money in crypto assets as events like the Three Arrows bankruptcy, and that was followed by FTX took place. But historically, crypto risk has been considered by carriers as, perhaps not incorrectly, somewhat volatile to insure. Why is that?
Yeah, I think a couple of reasons. Number one is, if you look back historically, insurance was oriented around insuring factories and boats and, tangible things. It's a little harder, I think, for the insurance. There are lots of kinds of insurance on intangible things. Liability claims, for example, is one. Intellectual property insurance is another. And there are lots of ways that insurance industry insures these kinds of things. But crypto is kind of new. It's constantly evolving, and that makes it a little harder for them to make their actuarial models work as well, just because, kind of the way it looked 6 months ago might not be how it looks 6 months from today. And so that's a little more challenging for them. One of the other interesting things is some prominent players in the insurance space, like Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, who run that and also operate a bunch of insurance companies. They've taken a very strong stance against crypto. And so I think that's a significant market player that looks like they're not in this space. And so you don't have all of the participants, and the ones that are in this space, again, are managing a pretty complex set of things. And that means it's going to go a little slower as they want to make sure they're going into it the right way.
That resistance that you mentioned, is that simply a product of the underwriting risk?
I mean, at bottom, yeah. If the insurance companies feel like they can't understand the risk fully, then it makes it really hard for them to price it. It also makes it really hard for them to come up with terms to insure it. And part of it is, even if they have the appetite, right, they have to have a product that is priced at a point that the buying public will want to buy it, right? And so you can say, I'll agree to insure anything for some astronomical price, and that covers the insurance side of it, but it could be that nobody's going to buy that product. And so trying to make all this stuff fit together and be a working market is, it takes a little time, and it's a little hard to kind of generate from thin air. And so I think it's developing. I think there are people, really smart people, seeing the potential here, right, with the metaverse and other things like that. And they are really trying to get into this space and get out in front of it. They don't think it's going to go away, but that's the good news. The bad news is it's still kind of hard to figure out exactly how you insure this stuff.
Yeah, so I think we've seen some startups, right? There are some startup carriers out there who are devoting themselves exclusively to crypto risk. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I think there are a few, and I think you'll see more players keep coming into the space. I want to say one, I think, is Evertas, and there may be some others. I saw a report recently that there were 6 or 8 carriers that really were trying to come up with a broad-based market offering here, and that number will probably grow over the next few years. I'd expect it. As if crypto kind of, some of these flashy events you mentioned at the beginning, if that sort of settles down and it continues to develop in good ways, then I think you'll see more and more entrants into the marketplace.
What about policies or products that don't necessarily insure the actual loss, but are you seeing any softening in terms of the availability for D&O coverage, for example, for executives of crypto firms as it relates to litigation or investigations arising out of crypto firms' products?
Yeah, I think they face many of the same risks and some that are unique, but a lot of them are kind of the same. And I think there is a market for that because carriers are very familiar with that product. They probably, may have less appetite for it, so maybe smaller limits than what you might get if you run a shoe factory, for example. But I do think there's some coverage that's out there because the risks, again, are a lot of them are known kinds of things, and so they can get their arms around that. They just might have less of an appetite for it.
So smaller risks or smaller coverage, but also probably higher prices, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's hard to put your sort of predicting the future hat on, but do you think that let's assume crypto is not going anywhere, despite the recent events, do you expect that carriers will eventually figure out a way to underwrite these products in a way that makes everybody comfortable and gives more coverage options in the future?
If I had to bet, I think over time we'll get there. Again, the insurance industry, they pay very close attention to what's happening in the world around them. And if they see a need that they think they can solve, right, they generally want to do it, right? And, it's a new market for them and people are investing, real money in these things. And so they want to have some level of protection and in whatever way that's possible. So I do think there's going to be demand for it. And where you see demand, the insurance industry, again, probably will spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to solve it. But I do think that over time, they will continue to have a bigger and bigger appetite for trying to deal with these. And then our clients, obviously we're a policyholder side firm, but our clients probably will start looking at buying some of these things, right? You saw, Tesla had a pretty good, healthy chunk of Bitcoin in its company for a while. I think they may have unwound that at this point, but that's again, they may view that as here's an exposure and we'd like to talk about insuring it. And so I think you may see more and more of that. I know that 401ks are now offering Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as exposure to a new asset class. And again, with that comes some risks that people want to insure. So yeah, I think over time we'll see this continue to head the path it's going down now.
To wrap it up, I think we've been seeing regulators, announce that there's going to be increasing scrutiny on crypto firms and perhaps new regulations from, for example, the SEC and CFTC. Do you think that this sort of crystallizing of the regulatory environment will promote, willingness by carriers to offer more, perhaps even less expensive coverage products?
I do think that's right. I think if they get some comfort around how these things are going to operate, there's a lot of the stuff that's operating, in internationally, a lot of different countries, but if they had something they thought was based in the US that was regulated in the way that other industries are, I do think that the insurance industry would get more comfortable about that. If a player emerges that, really does have the confidence of the markets that can demonstrate here's how we approach things. I do think that'll help. The FTX issues are maybe a challenge and an opportunity, right? It kind of presents a roadmap for future parties to kind of think about those things as they go. And that's probably a good thing.
All right. So we'll wait and see. Appreciate it as always, Vince.
Well, Dave, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. And I hope we can do another crossover episode soon.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks.
All right.